Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome to About Ukraine, and in this video I guess I'm going to talk a little bit about this current situation that we're all in. The other day I read on the news that something like the death count has reached something like 40,000 a day in the US, and it's a number that they haven't had before, and it's a shocking number, really, and it makes me wonder if that's going to keep going. The general, I guess, sentiment around the issue, the general public's opinion about it is kind of that everybody's going along with it because everybody sees that, their friends or their co-workers are all, they're infected, or they know, like, whole families that are infected, maybe somebody's died. So something that kind of penetrates the fabric of society for a lot of people. And, well, I guess the main reason why that's happening, I guess, is because of the certain things that Americans have, certain characteristics of the lifestyle, I believe, that are completely absent or vastly different here in Ukraine. So I'll give you like five main examples or main reasons why I think that Americans are going to fare off worse. Well, I mean, the first one is probably a very obvious one. The fact that we're looking at 75% overweight rate, and it looks like something like 30% of the people are obese in the United States. It's just common sense, right? When you're obese, everything has to work harder. Your immune system has to work harder. Your lungs, right, the most vulnerable part during COVID, has to work harder. Your heart has to work harder. So basically, like, you're putting a lot more strain on your organs. So your immune system is also compromised, right? You have less cytokines, you have less monocytes, your killer T cell development is altered, all that kind of stuff that makes your immune system really work and fight off any infections is massively compromised. Yeah, so the risks basically go up. And how is Ukraine different? Well, I don't really have to tell you, just look around, you can realize that the majority of men and women over 50, yeah, they do put on a little bit of weight, but they're not going to be obese, they're not going to be vastly overweight. They're still going to be moving around a lot and staying active, and especially as you get older and look at the senior populations. This brings me to my second point, which is Americans really do have a sedentary lifestyle and they don't move around too much. I mean, again, you just have to look around, look at any major US city. The downtown areas are very much dead after 5 p.m. You don't really see anybody walking around, and that's a stark contrast to Ukraine. Obviously, everybody walks around at all times of the day. I mean, the exception is New York City, obviously, maybe like downtown LA and that kind of stuff. The benefit of walking has been repeated by many doctors all the time. I mean, walking from 2 to 3 kilometers a day is something like a must. People in the US, they replace that with going to the gym. So they equate that with going to the gym, but again, going to the gym is a bit different, and maybe people have to go out of their way. Vitamin D exposure is also lacking, again, because most people are in their cars, they're driving from home to work, and they don't really expose themselves much to the outdoors. And that's another reason. There's like three points in one here that I want to mention. So I'll give you another example. Basically, what you have is you have people outside, yes, but people aren't only limited to their cars when it comes to transportation, right? You have the public transport is quite developed. And then I noticed that a lot more people use scooters. They use bikes. Things with scooters is that people use them quite a lot. And even in the winter, when right now it's pretty cold, it's like around 0 degrees Fahrenheit, which is like minus 15. But I think when it's around like even 30 degrees Fahrenheit or so, people still get around on scooters, and they don't let that cold, chilly weather stop them. So I think that's another good point that I guess Americans could learn from, is just if you have a scooter or like a motorcycle or something, I mean, that could probably also get you out more than you probably would. The third reason is another big one, is really bad food, right? Most Americans, they eat really poorly. I can say something off the top of my head that when you go off to a grocery store in the US, 90% of the food selection out there is processed food, right? What you have is frozen food, you have like microwavable dinners, you have canned food, and fruits and vegetables are limited and sometimes not existent, especially when it comes to convenience stores, right? Convenience stores is like 100% processed food. And that's a stark contrast with Ukraine. In Ukraine, you would have maybe some fresh meat, some fresh like milk products. You may even have some fresh vegetables and fruits as well. They may not always be in season, right? But the access is there. That is another issue really in the United States, is the poor neighborhoods don't really have access to that. People in poor communities, they don't have a car, and they don't even have the ability to walk to a grocery store that has healthy food options, and they don't have that opportunity because it's far away, too far, right? It could be more than a mile. It could be 2-3 miles, and that's not inconvenient to walk. And it's easier to just go to a convenience store around the block that has less healthy food options. Another thing really is portion sizes. Restaurants, takeout, doesn't matter. What you're expected to eat is roughly like twice as as big as what people eat here. Another issue is sugar consumption. Sugar consumption is increasing in the United States. I believe that something like 11 million tons of sugar was consumed in 2019, and that is more than what was consumed in 2010, which was 10 million tons of sugar. And 2010, that was like the big scare of McDonald's. They had the big gulps and whatever. You had the Super Size Me movie that forced McDonald's to get rid of their supersizing menu options. And basically, like, there was a lot of talk about sugar, but you know what? That kind of all fell on deaf ears because the general public is consuming just as much sugar as they did, even more than 10 years ago. So I mean, the problem's not going away. I'm not going to say that Ukrainians don't have unhealthy food. We do have junk food. We do have that kind of. In the United States, it's not easy to eat healthy. Sometimes the food choices aren't accessible, and the healthy food option is marketed at a premium, which isn't the case in Ukraine. Ukraine is like, if you look at any sort of package in the back, you could say non-GMO product, or they don't even have to say no sugar added because there's probably not much sugar in there in the first place. They don't have to advertise that. So I think that's another big thing. The number 4 reason really is it's more of a cultural thing. It's the fact that people are very individualistic, and I guess it does contribute to mental health issues in the United States. A perfect example is like the vulnerable people that are most vulnerable to the virus, the elderly, right? So the elderly, they get stuck in these retirement homes away from their families, and it's an important thing that it's a bad thing to separate families apart like that. Also, this sort of drive to individualism, that where you have to, like, by 20 you better move out of your parents' house, and you better, yeah, it's good to be independent, sure. It's not good to sort of promote it in that regard, where you're telling everybody that they should leave, and if you're not, you're some sort of like less of a person, or something like that. I think there was this more pressure to succeed. There was more materialism around, and that sort of drives this whole social acceptance of that whole movement, right? The number 5 point is, I guess it kind of ties into that one, is the wrong focus in general, right? I mean, that's what I just mentioned was materialism, and the desire to chase the money, I suppose, kind of makes people overlook their health. The desire to work more, the desire to always try to buy the latest thing. Not just buying the latest thing, but just some people is just keeping up with their bills, keeping up with their mortgages, keeping up with the fact that they lost a source of income. Now it's like they're under stress. They have to come up with other sources of income. For the most part, I think it also affects people who have money too, because they're trying to improve their situation even more, right? I think all that sort of propagates the notion that we should focus on so many other things, but not our health. But whereas I think it should be the other way around. Health should be number 1 always, and people should follow these basic rules and not chase money and then disregard their health. Another wrong focus that Americans mostly have is the fact that they're too focused, I believe, on the hospital beds and ICUs. Sorry, I mean, ICUs are important, right? It's important to have hospital beds. I mean, Ukraine has enough hospital beds, maybe not enough ICUs as opposed to some other countries. But the reality is, like, you shouldn't get yourself to that position. You shouldn't get yourself to the point of where you need to go to a hospital ICU. You should be able, your immune system should be able to protect yourself. That's another real oversight. I think the focus on that makes people think that is what they should be focused on, instead of keeping away from the hospital and doing as much as possible within your power to not end up in a hospital, not end up needing an ICU. Another wrong focus is that limiting people's ability to go outside and limiting people's ability to socialize. I think it's also bad. I mean, I do understand that you want to limit the amount of people, right? Rather congregating in size and having like parties and having huge get-togethers. I get that. In a country like Ukraine, you could have outdoor markets, you could have outdoor fairs, you could have people selling tea out of kiosks, that kind of thing. I mean, that thing could be applied in the US, right? The US could learn from that. I mean, some areas may be too cold in the winter to open up outdoor seating in restaurants, but you know what? You can add heaters. You can allow people to eat outside. You can allow people to have like shows, maybe not large concerts, but like very small concerts. I think there's lots of things that can be done that are just not talked about, or we ignore them. I do think that these are small things, but they do have a big effect on mental health and the well-being of people in general. In conclusion, the vaccine is rolling out, right? And I mean, that's great news for Americans, for the West. Ukraine actually has something to learn from that as well, because Ukraine vaccination is really poorly adopted, and I don't think it will be adopted to the degree of that it is in the West. I think that the fact that vaccination is not very widely adopted in Ukraine is a topic for another video, and I really don't think that Ukraine is going to get a vaccine anytime soon, and even if it will, they may get it from a place like China. I'm not too sure. In other areas like tuberculosis maybe, but at the same time, I believe that common sense and healthy way of life is going to play a much bigger role. But anyway, let me know what you guys think about this video in the comments below, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.